Well, welcome everybody to Truth Be Told, the PPS High School District Story Slam. Great to have everybody here tonight. We're on year 8 doing this. So my name's Paige Battle. I'm the teacher librarian at Grant High School. And if you are new to Story Slams, but I'm looking at this crowd and I think we're probably pros at this point. Oh, no, okay, well, on the back of your program, and we have more of those at the back if you want to pick one up, it gives you a quick overview of what is a Story Slam, how does it work. In a nutshell, our storytellers have 5 minutes tonight to tell a story that's true. It's something that has happened to them, and it is tying in the theme for this year's Story Slam, which is help. So you are going to hear 9 stories tonight that have something to do with the topic of help. So at the 5-minute mark, I was telling the students, they're going to see, as they're telling their story, they're going to see this Portland Thorns fan waving in the background, and that's going to let them know you need to just wrap up that story and get done, because you don't want to see the sign held up and just staring you in the face, because that means you have hit 6 minutes. If you hit 6 minutes, then you get points taken away, and you don't want points taken away. So 5 minutes to tell your story. We all know, like, the point of storytelling isn't about the points. The point is just being able to share a story and help get to know one another a little better. But it is a competition, so we do have some judges here with us tonight, and throughout the evening I'll be letting you know a little bit about them. But to get us started, I put all of these storyteller names into the Wheel of Names website and spun the wheel to see what order were they going to go in. So they're going to know when they're being called to the mic, because they're going to hear me tell you a little bit about what is their favorite bird. So February, I learned this year, is National Bird Feeding Month. This was something that back in 1994, Congressman John Porter wanted to establish a National Bird Feeding Month due to the harsh conditions that wild birds encounter during one of the coldest months of the year. So that is why they chose February. All right, so when I asked our first storyteller what was his favorite bird, he said, chicken. It tastes good. Please welcome to the mic, Jake.
Am I good to take this off? Okay.
I was in 6th grade when my brother stopped going to school. I don't know what it was exactly. There were probably a number of reasons, but it was a little bit of medical issues and a little bit of high school burnout that I'm sure we all know about. My mom objected to this, and I say this lovingly, but she's a bit of a hard ass, and she likes to drive us academically. My mom did not appreciate my brother's new school schedule. Days would pass, my brother would stay in bed, maybe he'd go to 1 or 2 periods a day, but he was not going consistently, and my mom would get home from work, and they would get at it. They would fight all the time. I remember one night I was going to bed, and my brother and my mom down the hall were yelling at each other. My brother protesting against my mom's unfair asks, and my mom telling my brother that it was the bare minimum for him to go to school. As I heard them yelling at each other, and I felt my family sort of being torn apart by my brother's decisions, my mom all of a sudden, through her screams, stopped being the person that picked me up when I was a kid, picked me up off of scraped knees, and packed apple slices in my lunch. To be honest, I started to fear her a little bit. My brother and my mom mended their relationship. He graduated high school a semester early, and their fight seemed to be left in the past. But what wasn't left in the past was the little bit of fear in my stomach that I still felt whenever my mom tried to ask me, "How was your day at school?" or "Do you have any homework?" Things like that. And as I got older, as I moved into middle school and then into high school, I started to need my mom to help me out with homework, college applications, which are coming up for me, and a whole number of things that relate to school. And that fear was still inside me a little bit, and I couldn't get over it. I remember one time I was sitting down with my mom, we were working on a sophomore English project, and she just blew up. I was mad, she was mad, it was late, it was due the next day. She blew up at me, I blew up at her, we had a falling out. I vowed that I would never ask my mom for help again. Cut to this year, junior year, the hardest year of high school if you take AP, not IB, as I just learned. I have needed my mom's help so many times this year. I've had meetings with my college counselors. I've had problems with teachers and different classes and my class schedule. I've had quite the workload and quite the step up from last year, and I needed her help. She was always the person that I used to turn to, and she needed to be that person now. And that meant mending that relationship and getting over that fear. I learned that I needed to rebuild the relationship with my mom. And to be honest, that's a lesson that I'm still learning. Sometimes I still hold back. Sometimes I still don't want to share with her what I did at school or how well I did on my last test. But I know deep down that I really do need her. Thank you.
I think I can say for a lot of the parents in here, Jake, we probably all share that attitude of your mom. And as someone who had 2 kids graduate from Franklin, I well know how hard that junior year is, taking the AP classes. No shade to you IB schools, but those AP classes are pretty hard. So glad that you get that help from your mom. And as a parent, I think we could say, like, we're happy to give that help. And if we're ever frustrated, it's just because we want the best for you. Okay, so one of the judges we have with us tonight is Dr. Gordon Buffon. And when asked about a favorite bird, I love this answer. He noted, "As I am an island boy, I was born an avian adversary. I choose the smooth-billed Annie, which is colloquially known as the, and I hope I say this correctly, Montserration blackbird." And I wish I had a visual to go along with this talk tonight, because when I looked up this bird, it is magnificent. So if anybody wants to keep track, I will write down all these birds and send them to you and send pictures. But I was so happy to be introduced to this bird tonight. It's really lovely. All right, so I also asked members of the audience for some of their favorite birds. And Christine said, "My favorite bird is a hummingbird because they are so magical, and I love to watch them eat from my hummingbird feeders." I would agree with that. All right, I think we are ready for our second storyteller this evening. And he said his favorite birds are stellar jays. These birds are native to Western North America and the mountains of Central America, and have, and this is in my opinion, because when I looked up stellar jays, they have some awesome punk rock plumage. So let's give a warm round of applause, please, for Ryder.
Thank you. 2020 was a crazy year for everyone, especially me. I lived in Longview, Washington, the country, the forest. There was thick bush and trees around me all the time, and my only neighbor in miles was my best friend, Cinchie Smith. He was quirky and eccentric, and he spoke with a British accent like this. It was crazy, and he loved to take risks. Like, we lived right next to the Columbia River, and he would make us, like, swim upstream. It was dangerous, but that's a story for another time. Anyways, I was the opposite. I was alt, not emo. I made sure to tell everybody that. I had, like, dyed neon purple hair and, like, yellow and white striped shirts that were just insane. Oh, I wish I had a picture right now. I wish you could bring pictures of these things, but it was crazy. One day, me and Cinchi were hanging out at one of our little spots. We called it the tree. Near the tree, we had a place called Dirt Mountain, but it wasn't really a mountain, you could say. It was more or less a cliff, a giant 30-foot cliff. And Cinchi, being the eccentric risk-taker he was, said, "Ryder, we should jump off that cliff." I was like, "No, that's a terrible idea. Why would you ever think that?" And he was like, "Oh, Ryder, you're not helping me experience the essence of my risk-taking journey." I was like, "Okay, you know what? Fine. How about you lead by example, Cinchi?" And he was like, "Gladly." So we went over to the cliff, and Cinchi, being Cinchi, was doing his preliminary stretches, because that's what he does before everything nowadays. And I looked down the cliff. It was really high, like 30 feet or something, and I was like, "Cinchi, are you sure you really want to do this?" And he was like, "Oh, you're funny. You're funny. You're so funny, Ryder." And I was like, "I'm funny. You're the one who wants to jump off of a cliff. Don't look at me." And he was like, "Well, that's why I'm better." And then he ran, he jumped, and silence. He broke his collarbone. "Help! Help! Ryder, please help me!" I was running as fast as I could. In my head, I was thinking, "Ha ha, told you so." But I needed to go get help. So I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go to his mom's house." We got to his mom's house, or I got to his mom's house. We had these machetes we would use to cut through plants, because this is Longview, Washington. And as the doctors and nurses arrived, which took 20 minutes, we all started going through the trials and tribulations of cutting through all the plants, going through the forest and everything. And I was like, "Sorry, my friend is just, like this." And he was like, "I couldn't tell." But fortunately made it to him. And when we picked Cinchi up, and got him on the stretcher, Cinchi was like, "Do not touch my hair. I have an event tomorrow." I was like, "Seriously? That's what you have to say? What event? I don't even know what event you're talking about." And he was like, "Well, just because we're friends doesn't mean I have to tell you everything." I was like, "Okay, well, I just saved your life. So cute." And then we put him into the ambulance, drove him all the way back to the hospital, and he made a full recovery in 3 weeks. I was so happy for him. We wanted to celebrate, and by celebrating, he decided to do it again. But fortunately, our family stopped him before he went and did it, so, hey. It was a really life-changing event for me, because I helped him not only get to the ambulance and the hospital, which he still hasn't thanked me for, but it also helped me realize that I need to be careful with who I engage with and who my influences are. And then it helped Cinchi understand that he shouldn't jump off of a cliff at 12 years old. Oh, I hope he's watching this right now. Anyways, that life-changing event helped us both in many ways, and Cinchi is fortunately and unfortunately still alive. And when I did this story at the last Story Slam, and I called him up and I was like, "I'm going to state," he was like, "You better do me, but better." So he's watching this, say hi. But yeah, it was crazy. But that was 2020. Thank you.
I think you've given us a brilliant idea for next year's theme. We can either go with danger or alt, not emo. I think that's great.
13-year-old me would have been very proud of you.
Oh my goodness. I too broke my collarbone, but not for that great of a reason. So, another judge we have on our panel tonight is Paige Thomas. And when asked about a favorite bird, Paige said she loves hummingbirds because they remind her of her mom. Aww. What she didn't know about hummingbirds, and I was today years old when I learned this about hummingbirds. It wasn't until Paige moved to Oregon that she realized that hummingbirds actually are quite loud and sing. I'm not going to try to imitate the bird song that they do, but apparently they do have a song to them, so I will have to pay attention next time I see one. All right, then we have, for our Lincoln competitors, a little fun fact about your teacher librarian, Miss Lieberman. When asked what was her favorite bird? She said a compsognathus, which apparently is a chicken dinosaur. So there you go. All right, the next storyteller, I do not share in their love of crows being his favorite bird, but I did learn this fun fact about crows that, yes, a lot of us probably know that they can hold a grudge for generations. What I didn't know was that there was actually a team of researchers at the University of Washington who ran an experiment where they captured American crows in nets while wearing a caveman mask. And then they released the birds back onto campus. When the researchers later walked around campus wearing that same mask, the crows scolded and dive-bombed them. And more than 10 years after this study was done, they had captured just 7 crows when they did this. But 10 years later, more than half of the crows on campus still raised the alarm at the sight of a caveman mask. So if anyone is traveling up to UW anytime soon, and it might be Halloween, do not dress up as a caveman. All right, so can we welcome up to the microphone Kenny?
I honestly feel bad for the crows, and I don't feel bad for the people who got like beaten by the crows. Hey, that's their fault, not mine, you know? So, my story is about a 5-year-old Kenny. 5-year-old Kenny, oh my God. You see, this takes place 14 years ago when I was 5, and I was really obsessed with heroes. Not just any heroes, specifically superheroes that can like fly and all, you know? And so one day, I decided to do the most evil thing ever. I knew it was evil because I was a mischievous child. Just imagine having a younger sibling, but I'm just like 10 times worse than that child, you know? So like, I decided to tie myself up to my parents' room, and I looked at the bed, and I was like, I'm gonna fly today. Oh, I flied all right. Oh, I jumped, I went on that bed and started jumping. I was doing cool tricks in the air like, yeah, I was bang. Hey, I felt like Superman and Batman at the same time. And so I kept jumping and jumping, bang! Oh my God, guess what happened, guys? The bed broke. Uh-oh. So, you know how a 5-year-old can like fake sleep? I was doing that. I was fake sleeping. And so while I was fake sleeping, my parents came up the room. They looked at the bed, they looked at me. They looked at me, because I can't fake sleep, so I'm like, and they were like, okay, I got a spanking of a lifetime. But did I learn my lesson? No. 2 days later, guess who I wanted to be? Spider-Man. Oh, Spider-Man, Spider-Man. I looked at the bed, and I looked at me again, the broken bed, and I decided, okay, I'm gonna jump in this bed again. And that's what I did. I kept doing the cool tricks, and oh my, that was my tablet that broke. And I knew I was gonna be in a lot of trouble. And my mom just came back up. I was like, okay. My mom looked at me, I looked at my mom, and guess what I did? I took off. Ooh, I ran through the door outside. And I was like really scared because I knew what was happening. You see, my mom kind of chased after me, and I was like, okay, my mom's gonna catch me, because I was like prime Usain Bolt at that time. I was like, sure, boom, yeah, because I'm like that. And so my mom was chasing after me. I was running on the street, and because I didn't want her to catch me, I started telling them people that she was trying to kidnap me. So that was strike 1. The look on her face told me if I get catch, I'm done for. So I looked at her, and I just speed off. People were looking at my mom like, oh my God, who is this lady? What is she trying to do? No one cared, but I was like, okay. So while I was running, I was screaming for help. She's trying to kidnap me. Help, help, help! No one, everyone was just looking at me. I'm like, okay. I kept running. And I stopped because it was like raining too. And so when I stopped, my mom slipped. Uh-oh, she slipped. Strike was strike 2. I'm cooked. So I took off again because I don't want to get caught and I'm gonna get a spanking of a lifetime. So I took off, and while I was doing that, there was only one place I could go, my auntie's house, and that's what I did. I went right to my auntie's house, knocking on the door. I had 2 younger cousins. They were both girls, and I was knocking, calling for help. Help, help, they're coming for me. It's either I'm gonna get a spanking of a lifetime or I could just hide. But I was bawling for help. I'd see either way, because, you know, 5-year-old. And I was just screaming for help, help. No one was looking. No one even cared. Turned a corner and looked. What's that? Uh-oh, that was my mom. Oh my God, we locked eyes. And she thought I was gonna just stop right there. Guess what I did? No, I did the unthinkable. I took off again. No, I was not gonna take a beating of a lifetime, never. And so, only person that can save me now is my dad. So I went back to my house. We were like running in circles at the time, you know? 5-year-old me didn't know where to hide. I couldn't even hide. I was like in plain sight. So I just went to my house, go through the door. I was with my dad, and I thought, oh my God, my daddy's gonna save me here. Whew. I hate being my dad. My mom tried to caught me. I moved to the left. She tried to caught me. I moved to the right. And I was so happy. I was like, yeah, I'm like that. I got away with this. Until my mom just stand up and looked at the dad like this. And I was like, what's happening here? No, it can't communicate telepathically without me. So I looked at my dad like this. I was giving him the baby eyes, and I thought that would help. So my dad looked at me, and we were communicating telepathically. I was like, Daddy, you're gonna save me, all right? You know, I'm your son. We're Batman. You're Batman. I'm Robin. We're both superheroes on the sidelines. Dad looked at my mom like this. My mom was like dead, staring him in the eyes. I was like, oh yeah. And she was giving him the mom eyes. You know, you're in trouble if you help the kid. So my dad looked at me again, and he was like, oh son, I feel bad for you. But I was like, Dad. He was like, son. So he gave me up to my mom. That was the biggest betrayal of my entire life as a 5-year-old. So guess what happened? Got a spanking of a lifetime, and I got a red butt. And guess what they called me? Tomato butt. And so yeah, I didn't learn my lesson because like 2 days later, I continued like jumping on the bed.
I think your mom was Wonder Woman in that story.
I think she was.
Okay, on our judging panel tonight, we also have Matt Brown. This is a personal friend of mine from North Carolina. We both moved out here from North Carolina. And so, because Matt is from that state, his favorite bird is the state bird of North Carolina, which is the northern cardinal. I learned today that it became the state bird in 1943. So what you might not know is that male cardinals are a brilliant scarlet red color, but the females have a buff brown color with reddish wings. What Matt loves about cardinals is that they sing nearly year round, and he thinks they have a regal nature, and he digs that. All right, so we also have from the audience, Amber, who said, one of my favorite birds is the American dipper, AKA, and where is Amber? Because I'm gonna have to, the water ouzel. The water ouzel. This is Amber's favorite bird because it not only flies, this sounds so cool, but it can swim and walk underwater. Pretty cool. All right, so we are now at our 4th storyteller of the night. And when I asked what was her favorite bird, she responded, parakeets. Love them. Me too. So please put your hands together for Zara.
This story starts with a bunch of kids who really should not be trusted with power tools. And you might be thinking, Zara, you go to a polytechnic high school. Isn't messing around with heavy machinery like the entire point? And you'd be right, or at least you could have been if it weren't for the whimsical horror known as the Benson Robotics Club. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the wonders of robotics, there's a couple things you need to know. One of those things is that no one who joins is normal. You see, there's 3 types of kids who join. There's the ones with an undying passion for building or coding, the ones who joined because they looked at the club directory and saw it as a checklist, and then there's the crazy ones, like the really, really crazy ones. Now, me, I was a number 2. I knew absolutely nothing about anything when I first went to robotics. But it ended up being okay because over there, underqualified was new overqualified. The other thing about robotics is that up until this year and up until I joined, our team wasn't really all that good. While other teams in the district were meticulously planning each project, organizing their members like perfect rows of ducklings, we were making sure our teammates didn't eat metal. Now, despite how insane it got, and trust me, it did, the bonds I made over the craziest shenanigans really helped shape my freshman year. I'd found my people, my psychotic, metal-eating people. Now, fast forward a little bit. It's June, it's the end of the year, and also like 200 degrees outside because 3 cheers for global warming, and I'm about to finish my freshman year. Now, during finals week, the district just throws a ton of free time at us and expects us to use it to talk to our teachers and sort out our grades. But me, I use that time to go to the robotics room. Now, the best part about the robotics room during flex time is that there's no real adult supervision. It's just a bunch of kids in a room with an array of power tools surrounding us. Now, usually we'd use that time to be productive, but it was the end of the season. We had all the time we needed. So today I had come for entertainment, and entertainment there was. Now, for this story to make sense, I'm gonna need to introduce you to someone we're just gonna call Mrs. Help, because Lord knows she needed it. Now, Mrs. Help and I were only really acquaintances at best. We easily bonded over being some of A, the only woman in robotics, and B, some of the only people who knew what a shower was. Now, the other thing about Mrs. Help is that next year, she was going to PCC, meaning that anything she did leading up to that would bear no true consequence. This would also be a great time to mention that Mrs. Help had a thing for fire. One might even call it a burning passion. Every time she came to one of our meetings, it became a giant game of keep away. She was obsessed with the strangely flammable and huge bottle of hand sanitizer we kept in the corner of the room, and it took everything we had to make sure she didn't pop open the bottle, pour it all over the giant circular saw we had in the corner, and set it ablaze. Do you want to guess what I saw Mrs. Help holding when I first walked in the room that day? Hand sanitizer. Now, me, it's the last day of school. I'm not really in the mood to gentle parent a junior, so I do the responsible thing and call over my friend for help. Because putting the blame onto someone else is always the great thing to do. So, my friend comes over, we talk with Mrs. Help, and she seems a lot less interested in committing arson. So, me and my friend leave, feeling successful as we meander about the halls. And we meander, and we meander, until eventually, we make the mistake of coming back. Do you know that meme where Elmo has his hands in the air, maniacal glee in his eyes as the world burns around him? That's what Mrs. Help looked like, as she fiddled with the fire alarm on the ceiling with a ruler to make sure it didn't go off as her hand sanitizer spawned flames raged on behind her. Do you know that other meme where a dog is sitting in front of a burning building, coffee cup in hand, saying, "This is fine"? That's what my friend and I felt like. And before we even had the chance to be like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" we heard the all too familiar jangle of the dean's keys. And I look at Mrs. Help, and Miss Help looks at me, and I look at Mrs. Help again, and my friend, because she's the actual smart one in this situation, goes up and attempts to pat out the flames. She doesn't fully extinguish them, but she does so enough that when the dean finally pops her head in and asks, "Is everything all right?" we can say, "Oh, everything is perfect. We are doing A-okay." And the dean leaves, and I look at Mrs. Help, and Mrs. Help looks at me, and my friend looks at the two of us. Pure disappointment in her glare as she says, "You two really need help." Thank you.
All right, I want to know, was is this at the Marshall campus? Okay. Lovely. All right. Another person we have on the judging panel tonight is Teresa Tran. When asked about a favorite bird, I have never heard of this, the magnificent frigate bird. They are known as the sailors of the sky. I'll have to look that one up. This next one, though, is pretty funny. So one of our audience members, Dan, when asked, do you have a favorite bird? Maybe you have a least favorite bird. The answer was, well, it's the same bird, because the bird would be the chicken. Love them for the eggs and the morning wake up. Least favorite thing about them is that you must collect the eggs and risk the pecking. True, true. All right, so looking back at our judges, I think we are ready. We are at the midway point of our storytelling. So the next storyteller chose an unusual bird. It is the red-capped manakin. This is his favorite bird because it does a moonwalk on the tree branch as part of its mating ritual. So let's give a warm welcome to Finn.
I walked across the windy bridge. Cold wind cut across my face as I walked further and further. The St. John's Bridge and surrounding area are beautiful to me. The tall towers, green and perfect, and they cast a shadow over the bridge that creates this cold and cool breeze, even on the hottest summer day. The surrounding Cathedral Park is also gorgeous. The greenery and life around it, surrounded by the bustling city. I walked further up the bridge and my hand gripped onto the railing. I watched the paddle boarders below as their paddles dipped into the water and made subtle ripples. My hands gripped even tighter. How the hell did I end up here? Why am I here? My hands gripped tighter and I tried to cry, but no tears come. Why am I the only one that has to face this struggle? Why am I all alone? I lean further over the railing. I dip my head down. You can't back out now. You already have done that before. You cannot get back on that bus. You cannot leave. I had done this before, but I hadn't gone on the bus. I hadn't gone to the 12 and then the 70. All the way to St. John's. I hadn't made the trek. I never even stepped on the bus. I just scrolled through my contacts and picked the first person I saw. I hadn't talked to her in a while. I wouldn't exactly call us friends, but she answered. The moment I said I wasn't okay, the moment I said I needed help, she freaked out. That was a little thing that helped. It helped twice. My grip loosens slightly on the railing, and I think back to a mock trial meeting where I learned that it was not just I who faced a similar struggle. It was not just I who had to deal with this. My hands fall off the railing, and I take a step back. I take a deep breath, and I center myself. Now, here's the thing about the St. John's Bridge. On one side, not our side, there are beautiful trees, a mountain, or a hill. It's pretty gorgeous. On the other side, our side, there's a Burgerville. I love Burgerville. It's not the best, it's overpriced, but it's Portland. And so, maybe a burger would help me think about this a bit more. I walk down the bridge. My breath keeps going in and out, and I step into the Burgerville. I order a colossal burger and large fry, the best order at Burgerville. And I consume my gluttonous feel-good feast. It's delicious. And I didn't really feel like heading back to the bridge. So, It was time to head home. I walked to the bus stop. It was just a block or two away. And I step on the bus. It screeches as it flies down the highway. The St. John's Bridge is pretty far away from where I am. And then I click the yellow pull cord and step off. As soon as I step off, I look around for my connecting stop. It was the 12. But I didn't see much of anything. I didn't even see a sidewalk. I was completely lost. Just what I need. So, I turn around and see a pet hotel and a gravel supply store. Great, I have to have someone pick me up. I take out my phone, and it's dead. So, considering my options, I wonder if they take humans, and I step inside the pet hotel. It was a dark room, a little dingy. It had the scent of dog and dirt. The ceilings were low, and there was a counter in the middle of the room with a woman standing right there. I walk up to the counter. "Do you have a phone charger?" She did, and I ended up sitting behind the counter on an overstuffed couch with the slowest phone charger known to man. Finally, my phone charges, and it's time to head home. I could call my mom, but she was at work and it was in the summer. I could call my sister, but she was too far away, and I could call my grandma. That would be a good option. So, I call, she picks up the phone, and in maybe about 10 to 20 minutes, she pulls all the way up. I head out, I run out. 7 car, she drives me home without anything, any questions, nothing. I explain I was on a nature walk, I head out, I head into my empty house. I smell the faint scent of dog on my jacket, and I think that maybe help isn't always a grand gesture. Because sometimes it can be a little thing. It can be getting the best burger ever. It can be having a friend freak out the moment you say you're not okay. It can be lending a petless stranger your phone charger. It can just be anything. Any little thing, if it'll get you back home safe. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. I think that is important to remember that, we all have those days, and hopefully we can all be good friends and be there for other people when they need our help. The last judge to introduce you to tonight is N.E.A. Weisberg. When asked about a favorite bird, she chose the painted bunting because it is so colorful. And what I learned about this bird is that the male, it's always the males with the plumage, but truly, if you look this up, beautiful bird, and the male painted bunting is often described as the most beautiful bird in North America. So in our audience tonight, there is a lot of love for the dodo. We have our teacher librarian from McDaniel High School, Nancy Sullivan, who said the dodo is her favorite bird because it's big, interesting looking, and mysterious. And then we have a parent who also chose the dodo because we should remember this bird forever, said Alex. So thank you for that. All right. Lucky number 6. That's my lucky number. When I asked our 6th storyteller for tonight what was his favorite bird, I had never heard of this bird before in my life. This student's favorite bird is a surf scooter. And this is a large sea duck that is native to North America. So please welcome Clay.
All right. I'm going to take you guys back to elementary school. I attended Vernon K through 8. It was a pretty small school, pretty chaotic overall. and I attended the after-school program, the YMCA. And every day after school, me and my friends would get together and we would go down to the cafeteria. Kids after school need two very, very important things. They need food and they need exercise. And the YMCA provided. We would go down, we would drop off our bags, and they would have a snack prepared for us. For you that don't know, the after-school program was only for kids who needed this extra time after school because their parents would work late, and it ended around 7:30. Or if your parents just thought you were a little too much and now just need some extra time. And my parents worked late, so I'd go every day from kindergarten to 4th grade. At the time, I was in 4th grade. It was a normal day. All my friends got together. We marched down to the YMCA. We had our snack. And we were getting ready to go outside, and it started pouring. Pouring, pouring, pouring. And when it rains, they weren't allowed to let us outside. So they had got board games and Legos that we could play with all the time that we had, you know. And they were in this giant wood cabinet. And it had a key on it so that during lunch, other kids wouldn't break into it and steal the Legos and whatnot. And there was only one key to the cabinet. And the head of the YMCA staff had this key. And he was not there. So we were inside with no board games, no Legos, and no exercise. They ended up finding a stack of papers and Crayola washable markers on the top shelf. And that's what they had. That entertained us for about 15 minutes, and then when it got a little wild, you know. Kids started drawing on the walls, drawing on each other, and the 5th graders thought it was great. They got the 4th graders together and told us that they were a tattoo parlor, and that they were gonna draw on all of us, and we were gonna look so cool. And we were convinced. We were like, oh yeah, this is gonna be awesome. This is so cool. We're gonna look like all those people with tattoos that are cool, you know? And they started drawing on us and all that. All me and my friends thought it was really cool, except for one of my friends. He was not into it. He was actually very upset. And at the time, he was sitting across from me at one of the long cafeteria tables. And they had just finished drawing the snake on my arm that now I realized was probably not a snake. The person who was finished drawing the snake reached across and marked my friend's hand with the marker. He freaked out, completely freaked out, started yelling at everyone, cussing people out. It was a whole thing. And we realized that he was gonna start calling the staff over. And we got all worried. We were like, oh no. He told us he didn't want to. We did it anyways, right? We were all laughing at him for freaking out. We're like, dude, chill out, like, it's not that serious. I get up to go around, be like, hey, we can wash it off, let's just go upstairs. I go around, I do the little parent tab where it's like the butterfly fingers up, like kind of under the armpits. He starts to get up, you know. He's still like getting mad at everyone. I'm like, come on, let's go to the bathroom, you know, it's right over there. I start walking towards the bathroom. Turn around, make sure he's following me. Bam! Punches me right in the center of my face, right in my nose. When you unexpectedly get punched in the face, you don't exactly have a normal reaction. You kind of just stand there and process the world, you know? I was looking at the floor like, dang, custodian did a really good job last night, huh? You know? Just kind of taking in everything. And I look up at him, and this anger is flowing through him. My nose starts to drip with blood. The staff came over, rushed over, separated us. He got put in the corner. All my other friends thought that was hilarious. They were dying. They thought it was the funniest thing they'd ever seen. They send one of my other friends up with me to the bathroom. And I'm in there using one of those really bad PPS sinks. You know, you push the top down, the water only runs for about 5 seconds before you gotta push it again, trying to clean my face up. And my friend's behind me, he's pacing. He's like, oh, next time I see this kid, he's done. Oh no, we catch this kid, he's he does no clue. I'm not even listening. I'm looking in the mirror and all I can think is why. Why did he punch me? And this is what I came to. He had told us not to. We did it anyways. Then when we did it, we all started making fun of him. And I proceeded to go and try and help him while he was in a really uncomfortable position. And I realized that if you're trying to help someone, make sure they know that you're on their side, or else you might get punched in the face.
That was a really painful way to learn that lesson. Thank you for sharing, so maybe we shall be spared from getting punched in the face. All right, tonight, sitting next to the judges, we have a math genius who is helping to tabulate all of the scores. Her name is Mona Schreier. She is from Lincoln High School. She teaches math there.
She used to teach at Grant.
That's what I like to say.
And then she went to the dark side.
We're friendly rivals there. But anyway, Mona said that her favorite bird is a red-winged blackbird because she feels like you see this bird in the most beautiful places. One of her favorite places where she has seen them is the Sierra Mountains. All right, so are we ready, Math Genius, for the next person, or should I tap dance a little more? Tap dance? 1 second. Good? Ready to go? Okay. All right, our next storyteller. I really like this response when asked about a favorite bird. He said it was the blue jay because I like the mohawk. So give a warm welcome to Ari.
So, my older brother, his middle name isn't exactly cautious, or careful, or safe, or knowledgeable of the education system, but I'll get to that later. Me and my family were headed off to Timothy Lake. It's this beautiful, scenic view, it's amazing water, great place to stay and camp for a couple of days, which we do every single year. But every single year, we also take a pilgrimage up to a lake up north called Little Crater Lake. It's also beautiful here, and the water is super blue, but that's not important. What is important is the journey and the friends we make along the way. So how it works is my parents, they will take the dogs and they'll walk the regular way, but me and my siblings will take the paddle boards. And how it works is it's the lake, then it goes up into a channel, which goes up into a creek, which then you hike up. We go all the way up, and it's all good, and we're coming back. And before we get to the real meat and potatoes, let me explain the situation, what we're looking at here. There are 2 paddle boards and 4 siblings, so 2 per. The older, my oldest brother-in-law and my older sister, they get the body glove. It's this sleek, inflatable, yellow, shining vessel. It just glides on the water. Me and my other brother, we're the youngest, we get the what's up. Now, the what's up, it's not exactly a seafaring vessel. It's more of just a box in the ocean. You put it and it sinks halfway below the surface, and then you gotta get on it. And that's a whole other deal. So we're coming back through, we make it through the creek, we're still on the what's up. I'm halfway in the water, not trying to be, by the way, and we make it to the channel. Now usually it's smooth sailing, but now Poseidon, he's giving us a little bit of flack before we can get to the campsite. And we start going, and the waves start picking up, and the wind starts picking up. And let's be honest here, the what's up can't handle it. So my oldest brother, he notices that we're not making it back, and that rock over there is beating us to the campsite. So he tells everybody to pull over, and we do. Now we're beached on the rocks. Paddle boards are thrown haphazardly up there, and we're all holding on. I'm looking over at my sister. She is not having fun, which, of course, being the youngest, makes me have the time of my life. Then my brother, the oldest, he looks up and he points to a giant rock. He goes, "Hey, Ari, you want to go jump?" And I go, "No, why would I ever want to do that?" And he goes, come on, dude, it'll be fun. And I say, no, I can't. And he says, fine, we'll start you off with elementary school. And I say, what's elementary school? And he points to a smaller rock. Now this rock, it's about 3 feet out of the water. He says, we'll start there. So I say, okay. And I climb up, and I'm looking over the edge. Waves are frothy. I can't see the rocks. And I say, I don't know about this. And he says, just do it. So I say, you know what? It's only 3 feet high. And I run and I jump. And I slam down into the water. And then, oh, the feeling was legendary. I burst up out of the waves. I'm pumping my fist in the air. I'm looking over at my brother. He's smiling. We're having a good time. I'm like, did you see that? He's like, yes, I saw that. You ready for high school? Again, don't ask where middle school happened. Don't worry about it. And I said, yes, I'm ready. So I clamber up to the top of the cliff, and I'm looking over the edge, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know about this one. And he tells me, you're already up there. You just got to jump. And I say, but what if I hit the rocks? And he says, don't worry, you won't hit the rocks. Look over the edge, it's all rocks. There's like nothing but down here. Waves are frothy, they're climbing up the surface. I say, how do I know where to go? And he goes, right over there. Now, if that was unclear to you, just imagine what it was for me. I'm all the way up there. So, finally, I'm just about to get down. I look one last time over to my brother, and he just doesn't say a word. Maintain eye contact. I don't know if he was trying to tell me something telepathically, but then he just nods. And that was it. Simple gesture. But all of a sudden, my legs aren't trembling, my hands aren't shaking, and that water, even though it's frothy, I know it's probably deep enough. So I take a step back, and I take 2 paces forward, and I jump. And now usually, you would soar through the air. There'd be a couple of moments like Wile E. Coyote when he's hanging over above the cliff before he shoots down with the trail of smoke. Nope, not me. I just start falling immediately. Newton's some other law kicks in, and I'm coming down fast. And I hit the water. And thankfully, I didn't hit any rocks. Wasn't even close. And when I surface, I look at my brother, and he gives me one last nod. And there I learned he helped me to live. He helped me to go out of my comfort zone way farther than I had any plan to. And so even to this day, whenever he tells me to do something, all he has to do is give me the little nod. Thank you.
No, I was kind of thinking you might have needed Ryder there to say, what are you doing? or who was your friend that did? Cinchi. He'd have said it in a British accent. What are you doing? Okay, so we have the fabulous Frank Dedula who works for PPS TV services. And I said, Frank, do you have a favorite bird? And he at first said no, but then he thought about it for a second and he said, well, perhaps it would be a duck. And then if you're looking at what he's wearing, I'm like, oh, I think I know why that's your favorite bird. That's your alma mater. So the Oregon duck is Frank's favorite bird. All right, we are at our penultimate storyteller. And when asked about a favorite bird, she couldn't choose just one. She listed 3, and they are ravens, crows, and blue jays. Please welcome Soraya up to the microphone.
Have you ever had a really scary experience, but it ends up being your most fondest memory? I was about 7 years old when my abuela from Honduras had just flown into Texas. She was hanging out at a hotel, waiting for us to come pick her up to go do something fun since it was her first time here. Me, being a 7-year-old and have only gone to a park or a play place at McDonald's, I didn't know a lot of places. I ran to my mom's room and I said, Mom, I want to take abuela to the park. She was like, why the park? I said, I want to feed the ducks. She's like, yeah, sure, we can go get her. So me, my sister, my dad, all got in the car and took off to the hotel. We picked up my abuela, and as we're driving, I look at her, she looks at me, I look back at her, and we have this moment of like silent intimacy, of just seeing each other after 7 years. And we get to the park, my mom hands us that stale bread. The moldy, day-old bread. I then start throwing these little pieces out into the pond, and my abuela, she's chucking like whole slices. I look at her, she looks at me, I give her a little nod, and she keeps going. I then look down, and I see this little geese. I look at it, I smile a little bit, because being a 7-year-old, seeing this small animal will make anybody happy. And I throw a little piece of bread at it, and then I hear this loud honk from across the pond. I look up with my 7-year-old eyes and see this giant goose. It is beelining it across the pond. I look at my abuela, and I look at my parents. They're with my sister, they're not gonna help me. I look at the goose. It is almost here. I look at my abuela and I go, abuela, abuela. She is still throwing the slices of bread into the pond. And then one hits the goose in the face. I look at her again like she is insane. And I start trying to pull her back. I'm saying, abuela, abuela. She is not listening. I then start backing up, and by the time my abuela looks up, that goose is on the shore. We are beelining it to a picnic table, and we are running around like a cat and mouse chase like Tom and Jerry. I was scared. I then climbed on top of the picnic table, thinking the high ground is safe. I get up, my abuela then stops and looks at me, and I realize I have to help her. So I grab her by her hands and I help her up as fast as possible. She gets on top of the picnic table with me as the goose then like pecks at the seat. We look at this goose as it circles a picnic table like a lion. It is just going for it, pecking the freaking stools and going around and around. Then my abuela looks at my dad, and not being able to speak Spanish, it's actually really funny. She goes, Niño, Niño, ayúdame, ayúdame. She's flailing her skirt around trying to get this goose away from us. My dad is dying on the floor. He is not coming. He's sitting there laughing so hard. I then look at my abuela and my eyes widen, and she's holding her flip-flop. As you know, those are projectiles in the wrong hands. She takes that flip-flop and she like frisbee throws this thing at this goose. And can you guess? It hit it in the face. I look at her again, like she's crazy. I then look at my mom, looking for some sign of help. She's recording the whole thing. She has her phone up, getting all the angles. My sister is laughing behind her. And I just can't comprehend. I'm not getting help from the two people that brought me into this world. And I then look at my abuela, and she's looking at me like, what do we do? She then yells from my dad again, Niño, venga aquí ahora. He starts laughing more. I then decide to call for my dad. And when I do, he finally snaps out of it and starts running. He's wearing these Birkenstock loafers with one buckle, and he ends up eating it really bad. Face into the mud, shoes flying up like a cartoon. He then gets up and decides to start like mushing this goose away. I see an exit, so I beeline it off that picnic table and go straight for my mom. I then realize I left my abuela on the picnic table, and I rush back. I then help her down, and I see this look in her eyes that says, you helped me, and I helped you in a way that wasn't really help, but you got away. This is the best memory I have because my abuela is very old and she lives in Honduras and I cannot see her anymore. And this memory that I get to keep in my mind is just amazing.
And that story right there would explain why several people in the audience do not like birds. So, I realize you were trying to help them by giving them some food, but yeah, I've had that happen before, and that is why I don't really have many avian favorites. Okay, so we have reached the last storyteller of the evening. When asked about a favorite bird, they said it would have to be the American woodcock because this bird has so many nicknames. The timber doodle, the Labrador twister, the mud snipe, the bodsucker, night partridge, and my favorite of all of the nicknames, the Popeye. So please put your hands together for Hazel.
So when I was a kid, I went to summer camp, like all the time. And one time I was going to this summer camp at the children's gym. And it was like the last week of camp. It was that last day when everyone's about to get picked up. And I saw this little girl in the corner, and she was crying really hard. And so I went over to her, and I asked her, you know, do you need help? How can I help you? She was crying so hard she couldn't answer. So I kind of just started telling her about myself. I was like, hi, my name is Heidi. I'm in 7th grade. I done gymnastics forever. I play soccer. I think she played soccer. I have 4 younger sisters. Whatever, I told her. And eventually, I got her to stop crying. And I went home and told my mom. And my mom was not happy for some reason. Because technically, contrary to the name of this event, nothing that I had told her was true. And actually nothing that I told anyone at any summer camp that I ever went to was true. Because when I was a kid, I loved lying. Like, I loved it so much. It was my favorite thing. And from my perspective, I was like really good at it. So I would do it all the time. I would go to summer camp and I would tell people that I had like a cool different name than I really had, like Irene, like Catherine or something. And I would tell them that I did like cool activities and that, you know, when I went home, like me and my 10 siblings lived in this like tiny house and we had to make our own shoes out of calicos. I didn't know what that was. And we had to like make our own like soccer balls out of a pig's bladder, because I read that in Little House on the Prairie. Obviously that's not true, I'm not a little woman. And then I would go home and I would tell my mom about my lying exploits. And she didn't like them because they're not having as much fun as you are, which is stupid. So one time I went back home and I told my mom that I helped this little girl, and she said, that's great, but that's not okay. Like you can't just lie to people for no reason, except for if you're telling a white lie, which is a lie that you tell to make somebody feel better. You know, like, oh, your haircut looks good or whatever. And I got really, really excited when she told me that, because that meant that I could lie to people. And so I asked her a question: can you lie to help somebody? And she said, no, because I can't really. But I was determined to prove her wrong. So I went back to camp, and I was like, I have to find somebody, I have to lie to someone to help them. So I was just going around camp, like, lying to everyone that I could find, seeing if I could, like, help somebody. And I couldn't, because that's not really a thing. And eventually, it gets to Friday, at the end of the camp. It's that thing where, like, you know who's gonna get picked up last. And I saw this little girl crying. To be honest, I got really excited when I saw that because I was like, yes, I could lie to her. So I went over to this little girl and I just started like throwing everything at her, like fake name, fake backstory, whatever. I didn't really have a plan at this point because what kind of plan would that be? And eventually I get her to tell me what's wrong. And she says, I'm crying because I'm scared. We just moved here from somewhere else. And I'm scared that my parents forgot about me, and they went back to California. And I got really, really excited when she said that, because I'm from California. I'm not. But I got to tell her that I'm actually from Sacramento, which I knew was the capital of California, so their coolest city. And I got to tell her, I'm from Sacramento, and that's actually happened to me like a bunch of times before. Like my parents would just like totally forget about me, drive all the 20 minutes to Sacramento, and then they would just leave me and my 10 siblings at camp all the time. But they always came back, and they always came and got us. And so she stopped crying, and her parents, of course, did come back. They had not driven to California. And I got to go home and tell my mom that I was right, and I'm a genius, and that lying is awesome.
All right. Well, thank you to all the storytellers who were here tonight to share about helping. Every time we would be emailing, putting this event together, and I would see that theme listed for the Story Slam, help, with the exclamation point. It made me think about the Beatles. I don't know if any of you youngsters are familiar with their album that has that word on it with the exclamation point. But when I think about the Beatles, I think about how I was helped out when I was younger. I had an older sister. I was the youngest in my family. And the benefit sometimes when you're the youngest, and if your sibling likes you, is that you get to hang out with the older kids. And my sister had a friend whose name was Kathy, and Kathy loved the Beatles. She was just all about the Beatles. And she would let us come over to her house and play her records on the record machine. And she would instruct us on who was singing a particular song. Like, this is John, this one's Paul, this is George singing a song. And so from all of that, I started to develop this real love for music. And I would say that over the course of my life, whether it's a time when I'm really struggling with something or I'm feeling really happy about something, that music is the thing that always helps to see me through. But I really love tonight hearing about a mom helping you do your homework, helping a friend even when you knew they shouldn't be doing what they were up to, hearing about wanting help to get out of trouble, and it was not going to come to you. Getting questioned about the antics that you were doing, that you probably needed help if you thought this was funny, that this classmate of yours wanted to set the school building on fire. Small acts that can help in times when you're really low. When you want to help somebody, you need to make sure that they know that you're on their side and you really do mean well when you're trying to help them. Crazy as it was, somebody helping you figure out how to really live your life to the fullest. I loved learning that you can help by taking off a flip-flop and flinging it at a goose, but getting to help your abuela and seeing your abuela help you. And helping really with good intentions, even if it seemed questionable, the method that you use. So I thank all of y'all for sharing those stories with us tonight. And I have our math genius coming up to let us know the results.
1, 2, 3. Do you guys want to do a silly one?
Do the silly one, come on.
I'm happy to see if this is like on deck.
Say the face when you jumped off the wall.
It was more about than it was anything else.
Oh yeah, stand here. Okay, so let's please have applause. And we want to say thank you to Rachel, Ryder, Clay, and Kenny. Our runner-up tonight was Finn, and our winner is Ari.